Acknowledgement to country or welcome to country. I call on Councillor Summers. Please do the honours.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On behalf of my family and community, I'd like to say Yama Day Gomeroi, Walla Baganiani, Wunungalawa, Yama Mari, Maramara, Ngali Down, Dilia Yanbali, Garna Marius Gaingal, Gomeroi Yamranginda, Wanalanginda, Wunangalawa. And that's the language spoken by our families in Tamworth and right across northwest New South Wales, making sure I acknowledge the country that we're on, the land of the Gomeroi people, and pay my respects to elders both past and present who have cared and still care for this country. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Councillors, I might ask all those in the room to stand for the meeting. Welcome Pastor James Bell to present for the prayer.
Thank you, Russell. Almighty Father, we appreciate the God-given nature of our Australian democracy and the peaceful and respectful civil governance at all levels of government. We proclaim that integrity, equity and fairness are the hallmark of Tamworth Regional Council. We pray that the councillors and staff be wise and considered in their duties and deliberations, and that every decision will bring greater prosperity and a deeper sense of community to Tamworth and our region. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor James. Councillors, we'll move into the order of business for the meeting. Apologies and leave of absence. As we're all present tonight, there are no apologies or leaves of absence. Community consultation. We have no community consultation tonight. We'll move to item 3 on the order of business. Minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have someone to please move? Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Betts. All those in favour?
Aye.
Disclosures of interest on item 4. Any disclosures of interest? There being no disclosures tonight, I'll move straight on to item 5, Merrill Minute. There is no Merrill Minute. Notice of motion, item 6. There are no notice of motions. Oh, we're slipping through this tonight. We'll move from there straight into open council reports. Item 7, environmental planning, nil. We'll move straight to item 8, 8.1. Could I have somebody please move item 8.1? Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Southforth.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is our report following our most recent meeting, which was in July. There have been some more developments since then with regards to projects and plantings. The additional $20,000 requested tonight, well, it's not actually additional, it's a budget item for $20,000 to go towards the additional purchase of materials used for our tree planting, such as tree guards, fertiliser pills, stakes and the tube stock. And of course, by using tube stock, we're able to plant many more trees than the previous practice of advanced stock. And we are achieving enormous success, and the seasonal conditions are certainly on our side. We continue to be very grateful and for the input of our community, and in particular community groups who have sourced external funding to help with the projects, and also to the other many individuals who have done neighbourhood projects. Our latest community project is under discussion is with the Katingal Lions Club, and also with our youth group. It's the Tenbury Park, the youth centre. So we do encourage all the community to get involved and look for the opportunities to help us, because the council cannot achieve the total greening and cooling of Tamworth on our own. We need the input, the continued input of the community and community groups. And those community groups have undertaken for 2 years to look after those plantings and to maintain them so that we achieve the best possible results. Our staff too have embraced new practices, and I'm really thankful for that. The latest plantings been the replacement of the poplar trees down in the Gibbs Street playing field areas, and they have been doing a tremendous job, as have the community. So I thank everyone for their support and their involvement. Our advisory group have got lots of expert advice around that table, which we're very appreciative of, and we value that, and we've made wonderful progress over the last 2 years.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Southwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of quick comments. I'd just like to say well done to everyone that's been involved with this project, including Councillor Tickle and our Director Peter Resch and General Manager, which has been led by so many staff underneath them and volunteers and community members that are making this happen. These projects are actually something that will benefit many people in the future. So, like so many projects we've working on as councillors, we are leaving a legacy which will benefit, the benefits we'll see into the future, and this is an example of that. But it's so good to see. I'm in full support of the $20,000 budget. I hope that it will be enough. And I did want to ask, is this a recurrent budget item? I'm just going to check with the GM. So it is an annual recurrent.
That's the recommendation.
That's in the recommendation.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and I don't wish to speak against it. I'm extremely supportive of this. I just wanted to bring to our attention that this isn't one-off. If we go back into the last 4 council meetings, we've had the Auntie Yvonne, which is a one-off, 20k. We've had the football support, which is 20k, but now that's going to be an annual item, and this one the same. And I just wanted to make sure that our budgetary process is solid and that we're not finding that we've got creepage in terms of all of a sudden we get to the end of the year and we say, wow, we've approved another significant amount of expenditure that's going to fall into us both next year and ongoing. And in that context, I just say the process rather than the individual item. I think we need to be a lot more have a lot more scrutiny and a lot more understanding of how we are going to spend our money at short notice on as needs basis as they come along.
Thanks, Councillor. Further comments? Councillor Coe.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Excuse me, just further to Councillor Burke's comment. I'm just wondering if it's going to be a recurring expense, is there any reason why it would sit outside of the Regional Services Directorate, and would it normally be included in that going forward, as opposed to coming before council each year to have that approved?
My comment would be that it will have to form part of the budgetary process, but I'll ask the General Manager to make.
So through you, Mr Mayor, Council, the way this will work is obviously if the report's adopted, we will just include it essentially as a recurrent expenditure item in future budgets. Would be included as part of the sport and recreation area where all the current street turning maintenance and planning and so on are. And I think it's important to note that even though you resolve tonight to put it into the budget and say it's going to make a recurrent item, that doesn't automatically say you've approved it in next year's budget. That budget will then still come. We'll just have it in the original figures we put in front of council. You could always remove it again in a future year if priorities change and something else come to the fore or financial circumstances warranted that we had to make savings in different areas. That's always the consideration. All this will do tonight is allocate $20,000 in the current year, and when we start to do the budget preparation for future years, it will be included as part of the original budget we put in front of council before it's formally adopted.
Thank you. Can I just have one? Thank you for that, Mr GM. And also just a question about, I do note that we're doing some planting in some of the outlying smaller communities and that we have done in the past, and there's some planned for the future. Just a question around, do we do any consultation about where those communities need it, or is that a decision that's made and we go out and actually just plant where we feel we need to?
Councillor, you want to answer that, Mr Resch, or should I ask Councillor Tickle, who's on the tree committee? Or?
I think Councillor Tickle will be in a good position to answer that, Mr Mayor, as the chairman of the tree.
Our horticultural arborist specialist, Hugh Leckey, is out and around the smaller communities regularly. As I mentioned before, Katingal Lions Club, he's working with them for a project, and certainly he's out and around Manila They've got tree plantings planned, and where we can, we work in with the local community. I recently was talking with Landcare at Manila, for example, to try to plan some projects, and the same will happen with the Somerton one. But we encourage all our communities. I said we cannot do this on our own. We need community groups to come forward, and we need people within our communities come forward with ideas, suggestions, and the offer of helping us to do it, not just to put it in the ground, but to look after it. So we ask for everybody's help to help us with that consultation. Like one staff member in TRC can't do that alone. Like we all need to do it. And there's some great examples that are out there that have happened in the past, and we want to continue that into the future. And the Tingle CBD refurbishment and all that, when it was done, it included tree plantings, consultation. We had community consultation for the whole project, including the tree component, and that often helps. But as we welcome any time input from anyone in the community, and we want to work with the community because we can't achieve it on our own.
Thanks, Councillor Tickle. I'll just add to that when we do settle down, and I know we've had some disruptions with the building and so forth, and our plan has always been to establish some committees in some of the larger centres. And Councillor Cates, I think it'll be very important to consult with those once they get established and up and running, and that's been one of our commitments from election time, but we have perhaps been disrupted from some of the things that we were planning on doing. Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Tickle, for the update and for the motion. I just want to thank the staff again from Regional Services and point out that I think that as a council we do an amazing job in making sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that new trees get planted in the ground. You know, like when we talk around urban development, we talk around the work that we're doing throughout our planning process, that tens of thousands of trees are getting planted annually. You know, like in the last couple of years I can speak for anyway, you know, that these trees are already getting planted, and what, in addition to that, we're having an urban street tree management plan. You know, talking about planting additional trees. And to make sure that that happens, putting in a greening strategy. And I'm excited, and I'm pleased, and I take Councillor Burke's comments on board around being financially aware and making sure that we're not taking any adverse risk, but having a greening strategy is important that we put a budget to it. And there's a line item saying that if we are committed to this strategy, and if we are committed to planting almost 2,000 additional trees in the next 12 months, to make sure that that happens, it's going to commit to a strategy, and we need a budget to go along with it. So just want to commend everyone for the work that we're doing, and Tamworth Regional Council's commitment in greening and cooling the region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Any further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
I was going to make a closing comment, and thank you. I know I've spoken a lot on this, but it is trees is a subject which always draws a lot of conversation. Unfortunately, it's all being positive. What we are also working on is subdivisions, and that is something that has had a lot of work done on it, and it's still requiring a lot of work. But again, we have to get the community to come with us, because some residents like trees, some don't. And we've got great examples of where residents have connected with each other, and they've made a commitment to look after their street in the subdivision, and they realise the benefits of it. So it's all our jobs to keep letting people know and stressing the importance of it, to improve the amenity and greening and cooling. But again, council can't do all of that. Like, we have to rely on others to have an input, and it's so simple as to, in a residential area, for residents to take control and pride in their area. But the community as a whole has been really, really supportive, and as Councillor Sutherland said, we've come a long way with it. And I'd like to comment on the budget too. It's a little bit like a household budget. I'm for seeing things happen, and we've got to find a bit of money for it, and sometimes we can make savings as well. So thanks everyone for your support.
Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Councillors, we've got a late item of business, which is item 8.2, and that is an easement over Goonian Street to provide the right of way for railway. So I'd ask somebody if they could move that late item. Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Mears. Councillor Rodder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any councillors wish to speak against that recommendation? Any other comments, councillors? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation on item 8.2. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move to item 9, governance and strategy. We have item 9.1. Could I have somebody move 9.1, please? Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Betts. Councillor Coates, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to make a comment in terms of the variation to the budget, thank you to those that actually gave us the report. It's once again quite full of the information. And I guess the other thing too is that I do note from it that although we've got a significant budget variation, a couple of those things are cost neutral, either due to offsetting from funds or by grant funding that we've actually been spending. And just to make a comment, I'm thinking that it's quite possible with the current financial marketplace and the effects of supply chains that maybe we could be anticipating further budget variations into the future due to the inflationary pressures that we're going to be under as a council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further comments, councillors? Councillor Southwell.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I just had a question for the General Manager. In terms of the budget variation for the Performing Arts feasibility study, I noticed that's coming out of the reserves. Is that because we don't have any budget allocation currently for that Performing Arts, or could you just provide some more description on why that's coming out of the reserves?
That's coming out of the Regional Development Reserve, and the reason for that is that reserve is actually, as the name would suggest, created for projects that would enhance the livability and various towns and villages and towns that make up our community. So it was just using a reserve that was fit for purpose.
Okay. So through you, Mr Mayor, does that mean we don't actually have any budget allocation for the Performing Arts at this stage? Because no, it would have come out of there if we did, I'm guessing.
It's because it's a budget item that wasn't planned when we put the original budget together. So it's a non-recurring expense, it's a one-off.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, further comments? Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just wanting to direct my question to the Manager of Water and Waste Management here with us today. With regards to the food organics and garden organics trial that we're doing, clearly the reporting of this is outside the scope of generating income. But for those who have seen the product that's being produced up there at the landfill centre, what sort of positive news can you tell us about the, and this is not a Dorothy Dixer at all, what sort of positive news can we hope to hear about the future sale of the compost and start to see some operating income in the revenue stream?
Mr Mayor, the councils may, this is going to be good news for the councils, the councils may recall that we have entered into a short-term arrangement with a private company to produce the compost at the landfill, and they're keeping all the sales from that product at the moment. We have the capacity to take a certain amount of material and sell that to our local customers, but the remainder is sold by the company that's operating that facility. That will stop when that process moves out to the new organics recycling facility.
You're happy with that? Yeah. Councillors, further comment? There being no further comment, council can put item 1. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move to item 9.2. Could I have a move and second that? Moved councillor Southwell, seconded councillor Coates. Councillor Southwell, would you like to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation?
Oh, yes, one brief one.
Councillor Coates.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think once again, the financial implications for investment are going to be quite volatile in the next bit of time because we're unsure of what's happening with interest rates. And that may give us an increase in cash flow or cash reserves if we get that increased rate passed on. But then we're going to have to compare the benefit of that with the increasing costs of having to purchase services as well as materials and labour. So it's a good thing on one hand, but it may be not so good on the other hand.
Any councillors further comments? I'll just second what councillor Coates said. Whilst interest rates are going up, we're getting some better returns on our investments, but we're also suffering on the other end with inflation. So the supply chain and the cost of goods and cost of services is growing rapidly. Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, item 9.3, audit and risk. Moved councillor Coates, seconded councillor Betts. If you'd like to speak to that, councillor.
Just very briefly, thank you through you, Mr Mayor. I guess one of the key things that come out of the recent ARIC meeting was initially, in the beginning of the meeting, it was recognised that the amount of, the impact of the Ray Walsh House and the current other issues that have had on the ability to be able to keep some of the reports up to where they should be. And the ARIC directors were quite cognizant of that and have actually indicated that they'll be able to understand and work with the staff and support them until such time as things do settle down. I think one of the major issues that has come up, and it's for all councillors, is that the RFS Red Fleet assets issue is ongoing. And I think that at the moment, there is a move amongst local councils for them to be not signing the required paperwork because it looks like we're trying to be responsible for assets that we have no control over, and I feel that will continue until there is some sort of resolution with that. There are also some various internal audit reports which covered things like asset management, employee inductions and employee culture. The project management audit is ongoing and will be updated on that next time. And there were various other reports from a financial perspective on insurers and workers' compensation and things like that. Overall, a very productive meeting, and as I said, the directors of the committee were quite aware of what the pressures that council are under at the moment. So,
thanks, councillor Coates. Anybody wish to speak against the recommendation? Any further questions or comments? Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment, or more of a question probably, to our General Manager. A few of us are currently engaging in the Board of Company Directors course, which is extremely insightful. We're currently on day 2, but there's been a lot of pre-reading. Part of that is that councillors have a good understanding of the risks in our environment, and I guess the minutes for this are very, very limited, which most people would be aware of. It just says that things that were discussed. I guess the question for the GM is, how much knowledge are we meant to know about this particular type of reporting when the minutes are very limited? Are we able to sit in on this particular committee? I know with our other committees we can, but is this one where we can't? And also, do you think it's worthwhile that maybe the minutes had a little bit more detail so that we could be more aware of the risks that the company's facing in order to approve these types of minutes?
Through Mr Mayor, any information that's considered by council committee is available to the councillors. So I guess my suggestion would be, because the makeup of the committee is actually set down by the Office of Local Government, so That's with your independent chair and independent members and then a non-voting council delegate and so on. The best way to probably manage it would be those councillors that are interested in the matters that go to this committee, we could circulate the business paper to those councillors, and then any comments or questions they have will be directed through the independent councillor representative, the non-voting representative, so Councillor Coates in this instance, so that she could raise that as part of the discussion with the independent experts that sit on that panel. That would be the best way to manage it, I think.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. Those all in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 10, community services, 10.1. We have one item there, Tamworth Regional Crime Prevention Working Group. Councillor Rodder, did you want to move that?
Yes, I can, Mr Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Betts. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor?
Not at this point, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendations on item 10.1? Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Betts.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Very happy to support this, the recommendation, especially the one where the name changed to the Tamworth Regional Community Safety Committee, because over the last 12 months I have been inundated with questions and concerns by the broader community, and it's becoming more and more evident that over the last, 12, 18 months, 2 years, the number of incidents that have been occurring in relation to vehicle theft and fires, but more importantly, high-speed chases or high-speed events. And this aspect, this committee has representatives from just about every government agency, so they can come forward with some action plans to try and address that, because clearly it is not working what we've got now, because every night there's one of these events that happen. And what will happen, unfortunately, and I think it's not an if, it's will, someone will get seriously injured or maybe worse, and we need to do something with it. So I'm absolutely happy to support this committee, because, as I said, it's got all the members that can make some differences here, because clearly what's happening now is not working and someone's going to get injured. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Bird.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I was just going to ask about point 4, item number 4, with regards to the appointment of 2 additional people. For those of us who don't know those people, just do they have a skill base? Do they have something that is clearly going to add benefit to this particular committee? And I wasn't able to find that.
Councillor Burke, I might ask Councillor Rodder, who chairs that committee, do you want to make a comment, or do we want Gina to make a comment? Councillor Rodder, do you wish to make a comment on that? You chair that committee?
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Burt. There was 5 applications received, and we looked at obviously all their current and or past work and or life experiences, and we deemed that the 2 nominated candidates would fit the mould for that committee. One was a former jail warder, and the other had experience with Lifeline, and we thought that they were important experiences and I guess skill sets that would be good for that committee. In relation to the name change, 100% supportive of it as well, because ultimately we're more of an advocacy group rather than an organisation that can mitigate crime and antisocial behaviour in our community. So we thought that better reflected our role and our purpose in council.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. And it is an advocacy group, and it's. I just asked a question, Councillor Rodder. Are we moving forward, or with our crime prevention plan to be sent off to the Attorney General? Is that any work being done on that? We have to review that plan every time there's a new council. I might even ask the Director if that's possible.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that plan is in draft. It's being worked on and it will be reviewed by the working group, and then it will come to the councillors and So it's certainly in the draft form. It will now be called the Community Safety Plan in accordance with the name change.
Thanks, Gina. For the benefit of the councillors that are new, we have to have a new crime prevention plan each term of council, which we submit to the Attorney General. Once that's approved, they're giving us guidelines to develop that plan, but once that's approved, we're then, this council will then be in a position to apply for grants. And that's very important to this council because we've applied for many, many grants in the past, a lot of which have provided us with CCT coverage across the city and across the region in the outlying villages as well. And they have been welcomed by many of the combat agencies like the police, and of course the community in itself is often calling for cameras to be put in certain locations, and I know that the outcomes from some of that footage has been absolutely fantastic, and we need to make sure we get that plan in as quickly as we can so we can start applying for money again. Councillors, this is Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, just to add on to that and the comments that were made and the commitment to supporting our community through active crime prevention and now calling it community safety, I think allows us to look at it more broadly rather than just looking at it solely at a crime perspective, but making it really clear that we're not stepping away from our responsibility in supporting our community's level of safety, especially through crime. I think changing the name is certainly appropriate. And the comment that Councillor Rodder mentioned, where there are a number of different organisations and services that operate across our region to provide safer communities, is extraordinary. And I would hope that at our next meeting, we can get more than 55, 60% of people who are down on the list to turn up. You know, if it is an issue that is so pressing across our community, it is a committee that, as council, we chair and we take on that responsibility in coordinating, putting together crime prevention strategies and calling out and making sure that as more broadly across the community, those service providers across different government and non-government organisations turn up to the meeting and have a conversation so we can work collaboratively. Because it breaks my heart looking at the attendance lists of these meetings and seeing that, you know, we're just not getting the bums on seats that we would like to see. So I'm looking forward to some great action in this space.
Councillors, further comment on item 10.1? There being no further comment, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 11, and before we move into closed council, I'll ask the General Manager, has there been any requests for any of those items in closed business to be reported? Councillors, ask for someone's information. All those in favour to move into open council?
Aye.
I'll ask the general manager to report on business in closed council.
Knowing they've gone home.
I reckon it'll be a bit cold.
We'll be hanging around.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council, to report on the closed session of the ordinary council meeting held on the 23rd of August. In closed council tonight, you considered 4 items of business, and for those 4 items, you adopted all of the recommendations as per the business paper.
Thank you. Any questions? No, we'll move that. Councillors, well, that actually means we've completed the meeting on time at 11 minutes past 7. Council meeting is closed. We do have a number of items to speak to when the thing's off.
Getting off so long.
Okay, now.